to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Hey, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior. That's Dutta like Butta, everybody, if you didn't quite know how to say that. Hey, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. We're live streaming. And what that means is next generation of broadcasting. You know, this thing, the iPod, Apple, that's all done. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and X, formerly Twitter. That means people can peek in the studio. So if you're watching us, you can post a comment, chat with us. We might feature that on the screen and get our guests to see that, maybe even talk about it. So pretty exciting to have a wonderful guest who's in the green room. But before that, just want to acknowledge that the show is growing. We book every week on the show, and it's because of you that I can do this. So thank you for supporting the show. And if you're on my YouTube feed, Tom Dutta YouTube, hit that little bell and subscribe. That helps the show grow. As well, put a comment and share the show so we can honor the guest story. We have a great guest on next week. Just a quick shout out. Chef Michel is here. Any foodies out there? He started a world-class restaurant known as Le Crocodile in Vancouver, French. He came into culinary, became an iconic chef known around the world. You know, we have, most people here know this in Metro Vancouver, that we are, they say, Hollywood North. It's $1 billion industry. We do a lot of movies. I think next to Hollywood, we're second, maybe next to Toronto, Canada, we're second tied or so. And so a lot of people would come to that restaurant. And Chef Michel recently retired. So we're going to interview and talk about, how did you get into culinary? What do you do afterwards when you've left that dream behind? Maybe you'll find something special there. And finally, if you are one of those who loves to tell a story, you can connect with me through my website and get onto the Quiet Warrior Show. We're revving up for next year, and there's many great stories out there that we still have to hear. So on that note, let me tell you about the guest who's in the green room waiting to come on, Gina Cavalier. I was interviewing somebody last week and I said Gina Cavalier, and they were so like giggly about it and said, oh, it sounds so foreign. It sounds so wonderful, but it's simpler than that. I may not get that right throughout the show. But Gina Marie Cavalier is a mental health advocate, author, filmmaker, artist, speaker, and spiritual teacher. Now, I got to tell you that she's in the green room. I was chatting with her. Take a look at her and try to guess in your mind how old she might be. It'll blow your mind, because she has this mindset that she can stay young, and it looks that. She's also founder of the Liberated Healer. What is that? She's going to tell us. Where she's building a 360 ecosystem in mental health with a focus on healing suicidal ideation through various products, meditation, healing courses, books, support groups, 6-part docuseries, a mobile and web application that allows brands to cover fees for therapy and healing sessions. Wow. I mean, talk about a purpose. And that's a heavy topic, suicidal ideation. I know a little bit about that. Many of my followers know I fell on my head in a bathtub in 2018. Had my first experience with suicidal ideation, scared the heck out of me. I didn't know what it was, and I had to go and get some assistance with it. As a public speaker, she's delivered talks on mental health and well-being in front of a live audience of over 600 attendees at the Warner Brothers studio lot. Imagine that. It's like probably had the barbecues out there, a little bit like the NFL's, right? And then there she is. Gina Marie has participated in several events, summits, and conferences as a speaker, and being invited to 25 podcasts since February 24. We kind of chatted that it's probably up more like 40 plus. Resides in Los Angeles with her 2 dogs, and Truman and Simon. I think I got that right. Sunny, California. So let's bring her on, and welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, Gina.
Oh, thank you so much for that wonderful intro. And hello, everybody.
All right.
Nice to meet y'all.
There's the challenge, everybody. Look at Gina, how youthful she looks, and we're going to get into that. You've got such an incredible story as somebody who has co-authored a book as well. Hold up that book so we can take a look at the cover and read us the title.
Surviving Suicidal Ideation, From Therapy to Spirituality in the Lived Experience. And I actually also did the art. I illustrated the book, which is about 40 different pictures in there. So it's all channeled imagery from this kind of pen. I only use one kind of pen, and that's all I do.
That's amazing. I'm just going to do something here and change the view and just pull up your book again. We're going to have some fun here. Look what I got. Okay. Dueling books. And you'll notice, everybody, that mine has many colors and marks because I've read it cover to cover. It's one of those books that I think is a treasure, and everybody needs to read it and have it on their shelf. However, we're gonna do something fun with you here. How would you like to go into Plato's garden and have some conversations?
I would. Let's do it.
Okay. Most people know what Plato is, but Plato's garden, they kind of look at me funny. So let me set this up. We'll edit this and make it look prettier later. But first of all, there on the screen is the book. But I'm going to play a quick bumper music, everyone. We're going to put the image on the screen there first. So stand by, Gina. We're just going to get this set up. What would it be like to go into Plato's garden? Magical harps and all. Welcome to Plato's garden. Everyone, Plato's garden, Plato was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece. And Gina was the founder of the Platonist school of thought and the academy, from the Greek word academia, which is kind of interesting. The first institution of higher learning in the Western world. Why am I telling you this, Gina, in the audience? I'm involved in a doctoral degree at Middlesex University in London. I'm in my second year. Knock on wood that I'm going to be able to graduate. And one of the things I learned from my professor, Gina, is that there's this thing called critical thinking that adults, apparently we don't do it very well. Critical thinking is where we talk about our thoughts, we reflect, and we connect the dots like it's one big mesh. We connect all areas of our life together. And then when we think about that, we might get a deeper meaning. So for the audience on the podcast, you can't see the screen, but Gina and I can. This is my last slide. I call this, Gina, the influences of context. So what influenced Gina's world in her work, her public work? So there's three areas that we might touch on. The first is called macro. So, hey, what was happening in the world around you, the global world, that influenced your public works? And I look at your public works as everything from all the stuff we had in your bio that you created that made a public impact. And then, Gina, the second area is what's called mezzo. What was happening in your industry? Some might call that the sector that influenced your public work. And so for you, it could be therapy, it could be art, it could be creativity, and more than that. And then the last one is micro. Gina, it's my favorite. Micro is about you. My favorite because we have people come on shows and they talk about how the great they are, their accomplishment. They like to talk about their work and stuff, but really, the nuggets come from also our life. What about us personally? So I'm going to remove that off the screen. And we're just going to tell stories and riff on it. And you'll hopefully see that throughout the interview that we will mesh all that together, and insights and deeper meanings will come out of the great Gina Cavalier's work. So to get us going, I'm going to just throw out a first question. Before I do that, I want to just be courteous of the audience with a bit of a trigger warning that before we begin, the trigger warning is for the fact that the interview contains discussions on sensitive topics, including suicidal ideation, mental health struggles. So everybody, if you or someone you know is in crisis or maybe triggered by the content, I encourage you to take care of your emotional well-being and reach out to the appropriate resources needed. And please, leave the show and then come back and watch the replay. Does that make sense to you, Gina?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's get going in Plato's, and I'm going to throw out the first question and we'll start there. This might touch on micro. I call this segment Personal Journey, Surviving Suicidal Ideation. So Gina, you've been incredibly open about your experience with suicidal ideation, particularly in the book, and how that journey led you to write it. Can you take us back to that period in your life? And what was your lowest point and what helped you start to see a path towards healing? Go back as far as you want, even your early years.
Well, I thank you again for having me and
You're
sharing
welcome.
this. Yes, it is a difficult topic, but I believe if we don't begin having these conversations, we're going to continue to see an uprise and lose more people. And I believe that I can bring a levity towards it because I've healed it and because I have an authentic connection through it. So that's why I'm here doing what I'm doing. But my suicidal ideation went way back to since I was around 8 years old, because I grew up in the 70s, to give you a hint. And I just had a very abusive childhood. And I think when you have abuse, physical, mental, and abuse when you're very young, and you lose that safety factor as a child, you start to create ways to survive in that element that as you age and as you get older, those survival skills actually hinder a positive life. And so didn't realize that I was kind of bringing my own chaos to me. And I always felt that I was sort of inside of a bubble, outside, that there was like, I was disconnected, and I always felt separate, somewhat separate from everyone, even though I had good friends or I was in love with people and I had almost, I felt the love and family, but I always felt like the other shoe was going to fall off at any minute.
Yeah.
And that's a scary way to live. And I always felt like I'm going to get a divorce. This friend is going to leave me. I'm going to lose this job eventually. And so I was constantly living in a fear. And so living in that energy of that fear, you're calling that into you, because that is life. Or life is conflict, life is changes, life is an adventure. So living in that chaos, you start to think, well, maybe if I just leave, then I don't have to deal with this future scary stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And I empathize with I wrote it down on my paper here in the studio, abusive childhood, because I have experience with that from my own childhood. And there's millions of people who do. They just don't want to talk about it. There's stigma attached to it. Just give us a sense, and you can get into as much detail or as little as you want. What do you mean by abusive childhood? What was your experience?
Well, my parents divorced when I was 8, and my mom was, wasn't very affectionate. So I didn't have the care and love. And I was also neglected, not just abused,
Yeah.
but neglected. So I would be left alone for a long period of time, just to my own defenses. And then when I was being cared for and around people, I was getting slapped and told things like that, and getting hit and getting abused. So there wasn't any safe point, yeah, that's sort of.
and did your father, your parents divorced and he left, so you didn't stay in touch? Or
No, I went to go. My mom sent me to go live with him, he was the very bad, abusive alcoholic, but he kind of, he's sort of a con man. He conned my mom into believing that wasn't drinking anymore and that he was sober, because he didn't want to pay child support. So she agreed to let me go live with him. But in reality, I was living in an absolute hell. He almost killed me, and that's when she finally came to get me. He was beating me to death, and I finally got on the phone to her, I think, and I was about 11. And she was about 45 minutes away, and she went and got me. And that was the last time I saw him until I was about 18. So it was very abusive.
Oh my goodness. I've had the privilege of reading your wonderful book. We'll talk about that even more. So I have nuggets of your story, but when you hear it live like this, and then I look at how coming on the screen and we were talking, your personality, how positive and amazing you are, and you help a lot of people. I go, wow, that's pretty incredible. We got to listen to Gina and her story, because to get to where you were from where you came from, I got to put some on the screen here, just change it up. This is my, hello everybody. This is my other cam in the studio. I got a little pad of paper here and it's already filling up. So just read something off there. Your parents went through divorce at age 8. You were neglected. Your mom wasn't the most compassionate person. Dad was an alcoholic. You had to go stay with him. There was a near-death experience, or certainly certain trauma, physical, at age 11, etc. It's like, oh my God. You know, they say that the more we learn about you, we learn about ourselves. So check this story out. My dad was an alcoholic. My dad was a very violent man. My I grew up in a home that was full of that. I took the brunt of it. My father left. My parents divorced. My father left home when I was 12. The threads that are connected in your story are so different story, but so similar and so common in so many people's stories. And yet, Gina, when I grew up, I always used to think there was something wrong with me. I never talked about it in public until I went out in public and started working and doing what I do today, and realized that there's so many people out there who have these kind of stories. Do me a favor, and from the book, there's a lot in it. What defines suicidal ideation? What that means, just so we understand that.
Well, it's a I wouldn't say consistent. It's actually, it's a overwhelming sense that you want to exit your physical body. And there's a lot of different reasons that you want to do that. And there's actually like a disconnection feeling from, you go numb, and that's when it becomes kind of dangerous. The more numb you get, the more disconnected you get, the more isolated you get. And what I've found is it's not a through line like depression where it kind of can linger for months. For the most people I talk to, it's something that comes over you when you have like a chaotic life event, or you just somehow dip into it. So it's a little bit different than something that's consistently showing up. And so that's why I think there's also a stigma, because you know that you intuitively know that it's going to pass, whether in a few days or in a week. So you don't want to cry it out to every single person in the world, because you're kind of like, oh, now I'm going to have this stigma. They're going to label me as this, as a suicidal person, and that's going to stay with me forever. And you know, next month I might be better. So it adds to people not communicating what they're going through, because it's sort of, it dips in and out a little bit differently than other mental health conditions, I would say.
Yeah, thank you for that. So again, through my own experience, because I had an MBTI, and that led to depression and general anxiety, those two big issues. And then layered onto that was suicidal ideation, which came out of nowhere. And you know what's interesting, Gina, is because of my doctoral, I'm forced to read articles. I don't read very well, by the way. I have double vision, so you don't know that. But I use a speech-to-text thing, and I see a little bit of double. But I started reading articles and researching, and I found a couple about, they call it in neuroscience, they use terms of maltreatment. So maltreatment, I think the term maltreatment and abuse are sort of interchangeable. But what blew me away is, all my life I've never understood the connection to my childhood with the development of my brain. And so you can talk to us about this when I give it back to you, but I learned that you've got this thing called the amygdala and the hippocampus, and all those terrible things you were telling us that you experienced, and mine as well, seem to be in there. And so your brain develops in a way where sometimes managing stresses, dealing with, I call it catastrophizing about worry and all that, it doesn't work as effectively. And you have to go and do some digging, get some assistance to work through that. Just talk about that if you can.
Yes. And I love having these conversations, because the more that we can say, oh, this is something that we can develop more programs for and more assistance, and it can be a little bit more overt. I mean, we all know that this is sort of like a silent epidemic, and really, where are the programs? There's many that need to be done. There needs to be things like teachers like me, who are not accredited, who can just help people, share energy in their story. But then doctors like Becoming Yourself, or like Dr. Amelia Kelly, where we can create programs using that brain chemistry like you're talking about, and realizing that, oh, this is actually some kind of fight or flight function that my brain developed. And that actually helps someone who's going through that, because what I always tell people is what started me on the healing part is I'm a curious George, and I had my own podcast as well, and that's why I had my own podcast. I like to talk to people like you do. But as I intellectualized what was happening to me in various other areas, I started to understand that there was a bigger reason why this was happening. It wasn't just all Gina is odd, Gina is weird, Gina's not perfect, Gina has a problem, right? So I started saying, oh, there's different parts. I have some old stuff maybe going on in my brain. I have some program patterns that I've created out of that. And then I have negative energy associated with that I'm carrying with me. And this negative energy that I'm carrying with me is calling even more negative situations and people to me, because it's almost like a magnet. And so now I'm living this life that I don't prefer to live, because I'm attracting all of this. And as a human, I'm like, oh, it's all my fault. It's all I'm the one that created this, and I don't know how to uncreate it. But as you intellectualize it, you start to take away the things that scare you, and say, oh, okay, maybe I go in this direction, work with my energy, or maybe I work with the therapist, and I start to unpack it. And then you get kinder to yourself, and you start to fall back in love with yourself. And that's when the healing begins.
I love that term, fall back in love with yourself. Thank you. Everybody, teaching moment on the show. Come back, listen to that one segment, and then reflect on it. Boy, I'll tell you, when you talk about that whole part about safety, I stumbled on this model online somewhere, and I used it once in a public talk, the circle of safety. I think some professors or scholars out of Washington somewhere, I might have to be fact-checked on that, but it was a university that created it, a couple professors. And I looked at this diagram, and I looked at what children need, and you need nurturing, you need people to be there to receive you. And then we hear your story, and all of that wasn't there. So you're a truly remarkable person. Before I take you further into Plato's Garden, just one more thing on your own working through suicidal ideation. Was there a particular moment or a practice, a method, and I know there's a lot in the book, that kind of got you through that sense of hopelessness to the other side, or was it a combination of things?
Well, obviously a combination of things. But once I realized there's two things. First, I learned how to ground, because I was an ungrounded person. When you are abused, which I mean by that is you're kind of have this scattered energy. And that's what meditation and grounding really helped me, because it really got me into my body, and it got me like, okay, focus on the tasks ahead, because you're spinning, right? You have all this other energy. Is grounding. And there's techniques in the book, but also online. You hear this word earthing, grounding all the time. It works 100%. I can't say anything. Grounding is my tool, number one tool. I do it every single second when I wake up. The second thing is through my journey, I actually saw and felt my soul. Okay. And I know spirituality and religion and all this thing is a real big topic, but for me, when I actually stepped outside myself and felt this vibration of love and light, and this soul that was actually a part of me, I just felt so, love encompassed me. And I was just so grateful to have that living, vibrating thing. And I didn't want to hurt it for nobody's business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's something that happens when you actually recognize that you have this light inside of you. You become sovereign. You become strong. You don't want anybody to mess with that thing. You become like a mama bear over your own light. And then you start to drive your own ship, because you're like, nobody's going to mess with that. That is pure magic, pure gold, pure beauty. And I'm not going to mess with that. And that's when everything will change once you see that and feel that light inside of you.
I love that. I became a mama bear over my own light. Don't mess with that. Such a great phrases to coin. Hopefully that'll be embedded somewhere in another book you do. Everybody, we're here with Gina Cavalier, who's co-author of the book Surviving Suicidal Ideation. There she is on screen holding it up for us. And hey, you already know, but if you just joined us, look, I got one too. And I've read it cover to cover. It is a remarkable book. Let me just ask you a clarifying question, then we'll move further. Grounding, is there something in the book, like if I wanted to do your grounding gig, it's going to tell me how to do it, or can you just explain it?
Absolutely. I'll explain it quickly though. So we used to be able to ground naturally as humans constantly about 200 years ago. But as we've become more modern, as we have Wi-Fi interference, as we have radio frequencies interfering with us, as we have traumas, we kind of become ungrounded. And especially if you live in places like, cities where there's a lot of cement, we naturally don't ground as much. If you get into the ocean or get into the mountains, your body will, the eye will naturally ground to the elements. It's because we're energetic beings connecting with an energetic thing, which is the earth, right? So we've lost that sometimes. So it was really important. So the first thing I do is I put a grounding cord on, which is just like imagine this cord coming off your hips 2 inches wider than your hips, and you send it all the way to the center of the earth, and you make it hollow on the inside, and you use this as a release mechanism to release all the lower vibrational energies that's not serving you, like anxiety, fears, all that stuff. And boom, it's just, you're grounded, just that one thing. And I find it interesting. I ground my animals when I have a dog that was abused, and he's hiding right now.
Is
So
that Truman or Simon? Which one?
Truman, he's 13 years old now. I've had him for 7 years, very abused, but it's really interesting. You can feel his shaking his body like a lot of times, right? Just in anything. And if you do that whole thing I just showed you, and you just hold him, you can feel that the shaking goes away after I ground him.
Oh.
So I like to tell that to people, because sometimes they can't imagine it unless they physically sense it, because we're physically sensory people. So if you want to try that on an animal, you will immediately see the difference, and then you can see how it might help you.
Thanks for sharing that. Oh, that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
My heart's going out to your dogs. You're such a cool person. Let me get into the next part of the journey. Everybody, we're here in Plato's Garden with Gina Cavalier. See, I told you I couldn't say it. Right.
It's okay.
This might touch on the mezzo, which is the sector piece of your story. I call it Impact, Building the Liberated Healer. And I have a banner that's going to appear on the screen. So you founded this Liberated Healer, and it's www.theliberatedhealer.com. It's on the screen ticking. What led you to create this 360 mental health ecosystem? What is it? What's your approach? Just tell us what you can about it.
Sure.
It sounds pretty cool.
Well, during my healing journey, I started getting in a place where I was just, living my life, and I felt very confident. I was in my seniority, and with my energy work, as just a regular person. And then one night, literally I took too much CBD. I'm very sensitive, and I kind of felt like I was hallucinating a little bit. I didn't even know that could happen. And honestly, like, this light came into my room, and it said, basically, you need to start sharing your story, and you need to start teaching. And here's the name of the company and all this. And I was just like, oh my goodness. I said, that is such a big jump to becoming just a regular person to a teacher. I take that it's very important to me. If I put these people's lives in my hands in a way, as becoming a teacher. And I was scared, and they said, no, this is your whole path. This is what you're meant to do. And literally, I did not go to sleep that night. I wrote the mission statement. I created the website. I did the logo, and it was like all done. And then I sent out an email to my friends. I said, Monday morning meditation class. It happened so fast.
Yeah.
And that was about 4 years ago. And it's been a train ever since. And that's my, what I call my secondary life purpose became unveiled. And what I love about this is that my life purpose was hidden in my pain. So sometimes you have to uncover the pain and get through the mountains and the hard things to find your life purpose. Sometimes it's buried. And in that whole journey, is now you start to realize like, wow, now I know why I had to go through all those experiences, so I can truly empathize with my students and the people that are seeking this help. I can truly understand. I put myself in their position when they say that they want to leave this world. I truly understand. I was there too. I'm not there anymore. And one of my biggest missions, this is my mission. I want people to know that they don't have to live the rest of their life with suicidal ideation. And I did not know that. I thought it was a part of me forever because, like I said, I had it since the age of 8. So anytime I lost my job, anytime I went through a divorce, anytime I lost a friend, boom, I would go down into a rabbit hole of suicidal ideation that would vary in time frames. Through this healing, I've had more traumatic things happen in the last couple of things. I've moved a bunch of times. Never once did I want to leave this place. Never once. And it can be healed. And I want people to know that because nobody ever says that.
No, that is so. Oh my goodness, you're taking me on a journey back in time. I mean, it's 2024, but I confided in you, and that, well, I guess I'm public about it because of my platform, that I had a fall on my head in the bathtub, got a brain injury in 18, and slipped into depression, then suicidal ideation. I wish I'd known you back then, because this is the part that access to services, access to support, particularly in Canada, you if you want to see a psychiatrist, sometimes it's up to 2-year wait time. And if you're looking for something, there's limited resources. Even that story I was telling you offline, Gina, everyone was telling Gina about a gentleman, Mike McCarthy, I had on my show from the UK. He's a high-level journalist. His son Ross died by suicide. And he talked all about how Ross worked to try and, he knew something was right, but to try and find access. So this is where I think it's wonderful about what you've done with your platform. I have it, just going to share it on the screen here. I put it on a minute ago. What a very cool website there. Look at that person. There's Gina, and the Liberated Healer website has a lot to it. So I encourage you to go check it out. Just talk a bit about the things when we talk about your public agency or all your work. You've got the website, but just maybe you can call them products or services. But what are the little pieces of things that you do for people? Like there's courses and the book and.
Yep. So I have this book. I have my second book coming out Christmas, which is Planet Walking, a handbook for the living. So it's meant to be rolled up and put in your back pocket and taken with you, just like you did when you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
And yes, I did take it off of Tim Burton's A Handbook for the Recently Deceased. I went it the other way because I remember when that movie came out, I was like, what happened?
I love the title.
What happened to a book on how to live? So, I have to just say, I love movies and television. They really did inform me and give me a look to what else could be. That's why I went into the entertainment business, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I think story, like you're doing here, and like I'm as well, story is a part of being human, and that never is going to go away. And we need to continue to tell stories, and it's really important. The hero's journey is there for a reason.
Absolutely. Well, every time you say something, there's more threads.
I know. I'm sorry. I lost your question.
That's all right. Here's my tattoo of the hero's journey narrative on my shoulder. I actually had that put on. Joseph Campbell's work, everyone, you know that I talk about it all the time. And the show narrative of the Quiet Warrior Show is based on that. In fact, Gina, when I asked you to come on the show, I ask everybody, why are you a fit? And if we can't share our stories, you generally don't come on the show. But there's so much hero's journey. Yeah, that's okay. The question, I mean, you gave us a lot of good things to hear too. Was about your total work. From the bio, there's a whole bunch of things that, books, support groups. There's a docu-series. Is there anything else you want to just share with us?
Yeah, we are looking for funding for the docu-series, and it needs to come out. So we have. People don't really want to fund things that they seem are very kind of, say, depressing, right?
Yeah.
But we want to do a docuseries that's very uplifting in a way of going back to intellectualizing what happened. We want to look at the geography, the different countries, what's going on with the different countries, because everyone has a different thing. Like Japan has a high suicide rate because of people who are in debt or in maybe family shame. You know, they have different reasons. We want to look at the geography at all. And we also want to go back into the history and look at when did the humans become more susceptible to suicide? Because, and I'm going to just emphasize this, the living is the whole idea of being human. Anything that has us, you know, a plant, a tree, a flower, an animal, you know, something, these beautiful creatures in the ocean, we all want to live. Our whole idea is to live. It isn't to die. So where did our instincts turn to where we want to escape this world? It is not natural. It isn't natural. Why? Why, as we become more modern, every single day of 2024 is the highest suicidal rate in history of man. Every single day. What's happening? This is 911. We need everyone involved. We need to open up this floodgate of conversations. We need the brands. We need the governments. We need any influencers. We need everybody to say, yes, we're going to stop this together as a community. But
what a great purpose. That's such a broad and deep purpose, everybody. We're with Gina Cavalier, who's a co-author of Surviving Suicidal Ideation, and in the book, many of the threads of her own story. But I so like your purpose. You know, it's funny, Gina, because when I was talking about neuroscience, I was sort of doing some Google Scholar searches before I had you come on. I like to get my head a bit informed. And there's the neuroscience part and, you know, the childhood maltreatment trauma piece and neuromodulators, all these brain chemicals and things that can impact suicidal ideation. Then there's the world. And I was just like, oh my God, like what you just said, I started thinking about, like, the world is at war. So you got things like PTSD. You've got what just happened in your amazing country and in parts, the hurricane and some of the images and things. And they're like, I remember I interviewed somebody who was in the faith space. They're actually connected to that blockbuster series, The Chosen, about the story of Jesus Christ. And I'm a faith-based guy, so I don't talk about religion, but I say I have a personal relationship with Jesus. I read my Bible when I almost lost my life, and I learned to basically have a relationship because there was nothing else I could turn to. And I remember asking, his name was Stan Jantz, he's the CEO of Come and See Foundation that funds The Chosen series. And they do like $1 million per episode. It's crazy money. And I said to him, I said, wow. I said, the world is such a negative place. I said, you know, and it doesn't seem to change. If I go back in the history annals, we talk about the same issues. And he acknowledged kind of the same thing. He said the world is negative. But we can learn to make choices and adopt a mindset to change that. You shared with me as we were coming on that you're so youthful and young and vibrant, and your attitude is so great because you have this positivity about you. Like, we need more leaders like you in the world who say, come on, everybody, let's get together and eradicate or end this thing called suicidal ideation. I think it starts with education, which is a big part of what you're doing. So thank you.
I love education. You know, I didn't get to go to school like you did. I always wanted to go to college. But let me reflect on some of the energy that's happening in the world. The earth is responding to the humans, right? It's a collective energy. So if we each raise our vibration, we will start to see the patterns change, whether it's collectively. It is a collective, right? It's like, it's more of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it is, but it's the individual that can really help. They don't realize, and this is another part of like feeling your purpose, is every single person on the planet is so important. And if they can recognize that whatever their story is, that that's unique to them, that if they can go inward, find that strength to come out and to kind of embrace that, that part of whatever happened to them, and get to the part where they can live in more levity and more compassion, and even like forgiveness. Forgiveness is sort of the last stage of healing. So I don't talk about that as much because people get angry, like, I'm not forgiving that person, which I totally understand. But it will happen naturally once you've been healed for a long time. All of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I don't even care anymore. Like, oh, thank you for that experience, that now I'm strong from learning that. So it is the last thing. So don't put pressure on yourself to forgive people, is what I always say. Like, that's something a lot of people talk about early on. And I'm like, no, you're going to lose people with that, because that's a long journey. But it collectively, so it's a collective of the energy in the world, and then it's the individual. You as a person, you matter so much. Whatever you bringing today, and as you just do a little bit of work at a time to kind of elevate and to work through those things, you are helping the collective. We need both. We need you to recognize that you are a part of this whole thing, but you are also the individual. And when you work on yourself, you are helping the universe. You are helping the world around you. It's
such great wisdom from you. I wrote down on my paper here so many little words. I wrote down collective energy, the word forgiveness. You know, it's interesting, Gina, because you were talking about your education, etc. And I didn't get a formal degree. I mean, my parents divorced, so I was really kind of homeless at age 12. Went out into the working world and just seemed to chase. I said this in my TED Talk. I said I was a self-worth chaser, not a success chaser. So I was a workaholic, got up to high levels of leadership. But I was always feeling shame because there were all these MBAs and degrees around me. And I learned one thing that I was told by a career coach once, that 10 years of lived experience can be side by side equal to a degree. And on the other side, if a lot of people go to a particular academia, and you come out and you try to apply it, and it's very hard to apply because it's not relatable. We talk about that actually in the work I'm doing with my doctoral. Mike, just if I can digress on that, because I think it's a message for all those. And my daughter's 27 and just graduated from university, and I think she's starting to see this. But we go into my cohort every 2 weeks, and it's to London, so it's like 6 a.m. my time. I'm not even thinking that. I'm not even awake. It's like, come on. But the professors are talking, and we're all glossing over. Nobody wants to say anything, because try reading a scholarly article. Nobody talks that way. Nobody writes that way. And then, okay, now you got to go and apply it. So how do I take that and even talk to you about it?
Yeah,
one of the things
story is so important. You'll remember the story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The story. So one of the things you've done with your platform is there is a library of research and education in your broad platform. That's what is so powerful about what you're doing. The last thing I want to tell you is on the weekend I went to see the new movie called Wild Robot, and there was a movie long time ago called Wall-E, W-A-L-L-E, about a robot.
I love it.
This one is remarkable. I won't spoil the thunder, but it's the newest from Pixar. It's incredible. But there's a thread in your book about you and about what you talk about creativity, and having the kind of mindset to escape in creativity, using that part of your brain, I think is also a wonderful teaching moment for the people that are listening to you and will read the book, because art, creativity, I play guitar, so not that well, but I'll pick up my guitar, and I learned that when I'm holding my guitar and trying to play, I'm using every part of my brain. And my wife just started drawing, taking art class. She's a career banker. But when she gets in front of her palette, like, there's no fears. The world is happy, right? Color in that palette. So I think that's some of what you've learned and you're teaching us through your work, right? Is the power of that creativity.
So, while I was still really unhealed, I would say if I was I have this interesting story. I was with Joe Frazier and HBO, and my girlfriend, they hired us to do some behind the scenes stuff on a thing that what HBO was doing. And I was with Joe Frazier. I was hanging out with him for like a week. And
that's like the boxer, right? Or
the famous boxer who boxed Muhammad Ali and all this stuff. And So just really interesting legend, right? And he had like 11 kids, and all the wives were there, and there was all this chaos going around. And we all went to dinner, and I was kind of sitting next to him, and I pulled out a pen, and I started drawing on a napkin, like really tight, like the drawings I have here.
Yeah.
And I just shut down. I couldn't even talk anymore. And my girlfriend, who knew me really well, he was like, he goes, what is she doing? And she goes, she does that when she gets so overwhelmed. And I didn't even realize that. Like, I would just shut down, and I would have to focus on something real small and start to draw. And as I was taking my pen and drawing something, I was taking that anxiety and pain out of my body and through my hand and into the pen. And it was, because it's almost like we're a glass, and the water's going to spill. Like, so I would have to like find where to put that energy. And then I realized people would look at it afterwards, go, wow, that's art. And I was like, no, that's a doodle. And people were saying, no, that's art. And so every art show I've ever done, I sell out of all my originals within like,
That is cool.
It was instantly. So
Yeah.
yes, but I believe that again, it's energetic, that if you were to look at yourself as like, we have 50 trillion cells in our body that push together to create this physicalness, and every single one of those cells has a little bit of energy, right? And this quantum physics. So you can either live that energy with a dark cloud, or you can put colors through it. And when you're creating, whether you're writing a song or picking or doing art, what happens is that all those little pieces of energy in your body start to vibrate in different colors, and it actually will lift your spirits up.
Yeah, that's transformative. That's awesome. Actually, what you just said. Now I want to know, where do we go to see to all your arts when you do sell them? Where are they? Do you have a studio or?
Cavalier.com. I have all my art. I just did my first original. I'm doing like original logos, because I do only pen and ink, and people are starting to go wanting to, after like AI is so beautiful, and there's a lot of neat stuff with it, but people are really tending to wanting to go back to the hand drawn and the very those really authentic expressions from artists. So GinaCavalier.com. I just did a logo for a brand, hand done. It's like they didn't want the fancy perfect logo. They wanted something a little bit like hand done and things like that. So I have 40 images in this book. I have 40 images in my next book, and a lot of them are channeled from my healing guides, actually. So
that's neat.
Yeah.
Everybody, we're with Gina Cavalier, the co-author. Hold the book up there again, Surviving Suicidal Ideation. Beautiful book. And now I'm curious if, as I'm interviewing you, you're doodling and drawing, because part of me is going like, okay, at the end, ask her to hold up the paper so I can see what she drew. I might look you up to have you draw something for me. But by the way, I can't draw a stick man, but I have a very creative brain, so I admire people who know how to do what you do. Let's go into another little angle here as we get closer to the last part of the interview. You're doing good? You're
yes.
You're having fun?
My gosh, I'm so happy.
Okay, awesome.
I love it. I love connecting with people, and I love sending all my love out to people who need it.
It's coming through. The airwaves is coming through to me. I'm feeling the same thing. This one is global influence. This might be the macro, so the global part of what influences your work. And I call this changing the conversation around mental health. So I'm just going to throw it out there to riff on. Your story and platform are raising awareness, suicidal ideation, mental health on this bigger level. And so what do you think needs to change in our global culture to support those people struggling with mental health crises, and particularly suicidal thoughts?
I think people need to understand that it is kind of 911 for real. For example, there's 1.4 million people in a Facebook group that I am a member of that are constantly reaching out just because they're struggling and need help. There's not another Facebook group that's higher other than religious and maybe some food groups. So not even like superhero. You would think that like these superhero movies, make billions of dollars and all that stuff, that they would have a big presence on Facebook. No, I mean, not 1.4 million people in this one group. There's many others, right? Those are real people that need real help, that they're reaching out to strangers on a Facebook group. I'm on there every night, at least an hour before bed. I go on and I try to help as many people as I can. And I've met a lot of people, but they're afraid. They don't know who to talk to. They don't know who to trust. There needs to be transparency as well with, the 988 and the different platforms, like what actually does happen. And people don't need to be surprised about what their rights are. I mean, everything's in the dark. Nobody even really knows like what happens if you call these different places. And so there's a fear. They're already untrusting. So
yeah. Oh my goodness. The the resources that are needed out there are plenty. Oh, Gina, you muted accidentally. Your mic, just pull that back on. The million in the Facebook group brings another thought. My brain went on a journey when you said that about how do you keep yourself healthy from this, what they call secondary trauma, because you can absorb other people's. It's one of the things that I experienced actually going into my mental health. I did therapy for 20 some odd weeks, CBT, which I know you're aware of what that is. It was in a group, Gina, first time, 20. The other thing, I said this to Amelia, your co-author, that I was kind of feeling a little uncomfortable because most of it was women. And there's this thing about men who just, I mean, come on, guys, we got to have the courage to say it's okay to say we're not okay. But in that group setting, I heard stories for weeks about other people. I did an online thing and I found it very difficult. And I had to really work at processing that. But I give you a lot of credit. 1 million people and making time every day for being in there with your strength is, I believe that God put you here for a reason. I believe you were put in a circumstance in your abusive early beginnings because you were being taught something that the world needed and you're using it today. And you said something about forgiveness, which really blessed me, in that I agree with you. I used to hate it when people say, it's your father, you need to forgive, because I was physically, mentally abused by my dad, but he was addicted. He was a drunk. I didn't realize till later in life, after age 25, when my frontal lobe developed, that I could think about, he loves me. He's just sick because he's an alcoholic. But what finally turned the corner for me, besides prayer and coming to terms with, I actually met my dad 3 months before he had a heart attack and passed unexpectedly, Gina. It was at a Starbucks. Through prayer and whatever, I was just given this feeling that you got to connect with him. And he said to me he walked into Starbucks and he looked across. He said, "Son, I love you. How are you? I'm sorry. Sorry what I did to you." I can't cry because it's just so deep, but I sat there and this thing was just came off my shoulders. And I was coaching a young fellow at that time in my practice, and I said to him, because he had the same story with his own dad, I said, "Dude," I said, "you don't forgive somebody for their bad behavior. What my dad did to me and my family when he was drunk, there's no forgiveness. There's a line. However, you forgive to release them. You forgive to release them so they can move on and heal. And when you do that, it frees you." And Gina, it's everything you've taught us, and I've read in your book. Doing these little things, it freed me. And now I can say I love my dad. I never used to say that. And if I had the ability to show you on my wall in my office, I have a big picture blown up of me and my dad at the Starbucks taking our last selfie. Yeah. I never was able to see my dad that way. And it took me a lifetime of healing and almost losing my life through a fall in that tub to go into mental health therapy. And it was through all that learning and much what you did in your life where I could get stronger to be able to finally take back control of my life. You are just amazing. You're all about that. Yeah. I'm so blessed to have you with us. The last thing I wanted to ask you get into just really quickly is about the myths of suicidal ideation. It's one of my favorite parts of the book. So just to tease the audience so they go out and get this book, what's one myth about suicidal ideation that
oh gosh, I think that the biggest one is that people are attention seeking. Wow. Sometimes they're say, "Oh, they're just attention seeking," especially when they're young. That is absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. I've never met anybody that wants that attention. That needs to go away immediately. And absolutely not.
It's so sobering hearing you say that, and so true. And when you think about the perspective, how can anybody even think that somebody's using that as a weapon to get attention? I mean, come on.
It's like trying. Yeah.
And yet it's funny because in talking to Dr. Amelia, your co-author, I was always, somebody said to me, you're so sensitive. It's not my problem. Those are your feelings. And you're always miserable. You just want attention. And I used to hate it. And I used to feel shame. It's like, who the blank are you talking to?
Yeah.
But now I understand. That was the part of my brain saying, I don't understand what's going on with the way I'm feeling. I'm procrastinating. There's a word for it, but I'm having these same thoughts over and over again about the dark side of life, and I just want to find my way through it, find the light, send me to Gina, kind of thing. So, such a blessing. All right, we are now going to have some fun and do something to honor you.
Oh, yay.
So, we're going to just give you a little round of applause. You're just coming out of Plato's garden. Gina, what we did was we had a great conversation with you, but it was all story, and it took us from your personal into your sector into the global impact you're making, and just fantastic. So now I would like to reveal on the show a book review for your wonderful book that you co-authored. I've written, and it's been posted, and it's live on Amazon, a 5-star international because it's on Amazon.ca, which is the Canadian part of Amazon. So you ready to have some fun with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to add it to the stage, and you're going to have to let me just read it to you because that's what I want to do. And then we'll make sure you get a copy. All right. So you can see that there? Okay. All of those on the podcast, when it comes out, you won't see the screen, but you can go to Amazon. I title this A Powerful, Authentic Guide for Anyone Navigating Mental Health Challenges, 5 stars. I'm just going to scroll it, and it's about just a couple screens here. As someone with lived experience in mental illness and deep commitment to public work as an educator and coach, Surviving Suicidal Ideation by Dr. Amelia Kelly and Gina Cavalier is a timely and invaluable resource. The authors expertly weave together personal storytelling and professional insight, creating a book that resonates deeply on multiple levels. The book's beautiful cover, now we know designed in part by the great Gina, and quality feel. It's hefty. The paperback has these waxy pages. I kind of joked, Gina, that when my emotional tears came out, that was very helpful. It adds to the appeal, making it ideal for bedside reading or as a reference book to return to often. Both Dr. Kelly, as a trauma-informed therapist, and Gina, as someone who's lived through suicidal ideation, bring their unique qualifications and experience to this hybrid educational text and workbook. The margin notes detailing Gina's real-life experiences add an authentic layer that makes the book stand out. You can feel the synergy between the two authors as they balance the personal and professional seamlessly. The book doesn't just educate, it challenges you to think differently about mental health and what healing looks like. And one of the aspects I appreciated, Gina, most is how the book provides actionable mental health strategies with space to reflect and write, encouraging readers to process in their own way, though, of course, these exercises are best done in consultation with a therapist when needed. The myths section, as I mentioned to you, Gina, a minute ago, is my favorite. No spoilers here. It debunks common misconceptions about mental health and suicidal ideation in a way that makes you pause, reconsider what you thought and knew. The book doesn't just educate, it challenges you to think differently about mental health and what healing looks like. Whether you're someone living with mental illness or supporting a loved one through their journey, this book offers compassion tools, a roadmap for healing. It's the kind of resource, I believe, that belongs not just on your bookshelf, but in your hands, ready to use. I highly recommend picking up a copy, read it cover to cover, and experiences its impact firsthand. If you've been touched by mental health strategies directly or indirectly, don't hesitate. Book could change lives. By me, Tom Dutta. So congratulations.
Wow, I'm not even kidding you. That brought tears in my eyes because it's like, wow, it's like, wow.
That's all right.
I'm telling girls now.
Everyone, we are here, and this is what it looks like with Gina getting emotional. That's a magic moment.
It's like I feel like you summed up everything I wanted to accomplish from the minute that I had this idea to the minute that I asked Dr. Kelly to help me write it.
That's amazing.
Sorry, my dog's in the background coughing.
That's all right.
To even getting the Swedenborg Foundation to sign on, which I want to just give them a shout out. They were so amazing to work with, and
Is
sorry.
he okay? Is he okay?
Yeah, he's just getting old. And
he's getting choked up. He's
yeah,
getting choked up about the review.
His energy. Emmanuel Swedenborg, who was the foundation of the Swedenborg Foundation's work, he actually, his energy came through to me. He supported me, and
Wow.
just it's been such an enlightening experience. And to people I get to meet, and like yourself, and the daily people that come up to me, I have some people buy books for me just so I can give them out to other people on my journey. So I have, if you want to buy 5 books, it's $100, and I'm going to be putting that on my website, and you can Venmo it. But because I constantly was giving out books and it was costing me money, so now people are kind of buying my books so I can give them out, which I think is great. Because I'll be at a coffee shop or anywhere, and if someone's like, "Can I have that?" I'm like, "Yeah." But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that. I that's such a great idea. I'm a published author, as you know, and I make it a point of each year ordering 100 books. I pay for it and then gifting them or giving them out. And I want to say to you, I love you and your story, because one of the things is that when you pass that book into somebody else's hands, you change a life. And your book's a bestseller, in my opinion, Gina. If just one person reads it and gets something out of it, that puts them on a different path to happiness. And so everyone, go to Gina's website. I like that idea. Help her get more books out. So now we're going to finish off and probably make you cry a little bit more and then give you an award. So why don't you savor this part, enjoy it. And I was having some fun, not that your dog was joking, but I had this warped sense of humor that he heard the review and he got all choked up too. So that's pretty amazing. All right, so I'm going to put some on the screen here so you can see this. There is, all right, so have you ever heard of challenge coins?
No.
Okay, good. Not good, but next time I ask you that, you say, actually, now I did. So before I show you it, there's this little sleeve that comes with it. So the history of the challenge coins, they surfaced during World War I. The practice of carrying a coin designed specifically for a unit was popular with the Army Special Forces. Carrying the coin at all times, Gina, and presenting it when challenged to prove affiliation with your unit resulted in a number of consequences who could not produce a coin. So if you didn't have your coin, the most popular consequence was a soldier would buy a round of drinks. And that, by the way, is still a practice today. So these coins now are used around the world. I mean, special forces, first responders, even Alcoholics Anonymous had sort of their version of a coin. So when I started the show, I wanted an award, and my show is for the 1% in society. I vet hard for my guests that came through some challenge in their life, turned it into a purpose, and are making an impact to change people's lives. It's rare. You're rare. You're 1%. And so I'm just going to hold it up. It's handcrafted and painted. It's fairly hefty. And the front is the actual image of the show. But the back is something I hope you'll smile about. The Hero's Journey narrative by Joe Campbell is fully illustrated. Isn't that cool?
I love it. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. So for them to even do that, I mean, it's so intricate. Yeah. So congratulations. You've now become a quiet warrior. They're in pockets of almost 300 people around the world, the 1%. So welcome.
Really? Oh my gosh. I am so excited. That means so much to me. Thank you so much. Oh, wow.
You sure deserve it.
As a writer, like the Hero's Journey is like so deeply a part of me.
Yeah, I mean, the Hero of a Thousand Faces. You and I know about that. For those who want a good book, Gina, I'll be arranging to get this out to you. Now, I hope to meet you one day and we can face to face. It'd be really cool if you doodled an image of the front of the coin or something and just emailed it to me.
I will.
We're gonna get that to you with a special card. So again, welcome.
Oh, I will hold it in my little area with all my stuff that inspires me every day.
And I wanted you to know that now that we're fellow quiet warriors, we're connected for life. So through my platform, I do this. I don't monetize my show. I want to serve in any way come back, keep in touch. If you're doing a book and you want me to read and make a comment for you, whatever I can do. And just keep taking the story of your heroism and sharing it, no matter how painful, because that's what's creating strength. So before I wrap up, I have 4 words here to honor you with. Again, I have a little paper here that's full, and no doodles on this one. These are leadership words. The first one is heroine. You're a heroine. There's no question about it. Number 2 is positivity. That comes out of you more than I have ever seen in an interview like this. 3 is love. You are love. I feel it. And you have not judged me when I've told you my story. I love you for that. 4, you are planet walking. That's in the dictionary. When we see that word, you'll be there. And 5 is that they say the difference between knowledge and wisdom is time. You are wisdom, because what you have, you can't give somebody. You have to have gone through that journey. So congratulations, Quiet Warrior. And I'll give it to you for the last word. Anything you want to say, how you're going to leave this world for a better place, whatever you want. And then we'll let you go.
You did make me cry again. Wow. I got chills all over my body. Thank you, everybody. This is
You're
something
welcome.
that I have on the front of my website, but I just want to say it because it's just my thing. When I was a kid and I was lost, I kept saying, "You are the joy that nothing else is." And I never knew what that was. And I just would say it to myself. And now I truly know that I am the joy that nothing else is. And you are the joy that nothing else is. Your soul is the most valuable thing that you own. So take care of it and love
Thank
yourself.
you.
Yes.
Love your soul. You are the joy that, how did that go? You are the joy that nobody else
That nothing else is.
is. That has to be, I'll go back and write that in my notebook. That has to be another phrase somewhere that shows up somewhere in your work publicly. That is so amazing. There's something interesting because stuff just comes out of you and you coin things on the fly. That's very creative. But when it happens, I know it's from a depth in the soul, which is why that your legacy is already being left with all of these little things you're creating. So, hey, everybody. Gina, thank you for being here. We'll have you back anytime.
Thank you. Thank you
You're
so much.
welcome.
This was
You're welcome.
very enlightening, and I feel so full of love, and I hope everybody feels it too.
Absolutely. So everybody, on that note, live that true life that you deserve and desire. Live your life like you've seen Gina do. Find it and live it with purpose. And we'll see you all again on the Quiet Warrior Show. Thank you, Gina.
Bless you. Thanks.
Bless you too.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
Stand by. We're still live, so I'm just going to end the stream here. Let's take it off.